Hello, welcome to Cozy Cosmos. I am still sick and I have been doing everything that I can to unsick myself. Um, and I've been sitting and reflecting on astrology and how real it can be and how frustrating that can also be. Having a ton of planets in the path of Mars in the sky. I have a Leo moon, a Cancer sun. Mars will also go over my Mercury. I've been wondering if it's just that, sickness is a way that this is playing out for me. And knowing we have to harness and channel the energy of Mars, which doesn't feel as easy when Mars is retrograde. And Mars is a incredibly brilliant site right now, as is Venus. So I encourage you over this next week to get out under the night sky and view Venus coming back to her wholeness. She has entered a new phase in the Venus cycle. This phase lasts about 50 days and she's very vibrant in the night sky. And Mars being as close and as bright in the sky kind of as possible. Um, it is directly opposite the sun this week. And so when we think about this, this is the part of the retrograde cycle that makes the planet closest to Earth. It makes it the brightest and the biggest and really, I think, the most felt. And I asked my last video that I did, what is irritating you? And I wonder if you've been having some stories come up. Um, I have deeply, and I've been kind of again sitting in awe at astrology, trying to understand why and how and remembering that this Mars retrograde cycle started in the sign of Scorpio in November of 2023. So I want you just to write down Mars, irritation, frustration, maybe direction and action and goals and ambition. You might be thinking all of these things. And then what part of my chart is Cancer and what part of my chart is Scorpio? Okay. So that synodic cycle beginning in November of 2023 in Scorpio might illuminate and highlight what is going on for you. For myself, Scorpio is my seventh house of committed partnerships, and me and my husband have been fighting so incredibly badly. Frustration, irritation, just nitpicking. I feel like from my perspective, I'm like, I'm not going to not say anything anymore, which Cancer is my third house, communication, the mind, our daily rituals and routines. And I'm starting to speak out on some things that are pissing me off. And so just layer Cancer is this part of the chart. What does that mean? Scorpio is this part of my chart. What does that mean? And here are some key dates with that retrograde that you might just want to go and take a look back and then think forward what might be happening. Mars entered the pre-retrograde shadow at 17 degrees of Cancer on October the 4th. It began its retrograde in Leo at 6 degrees of Leo, December the 6th. January 15th, 16th, we come into this Sun Mars opposition, and this is happening at 26 degrees of Cancer. Then February 23rd, looking to the future, it's going to station direct at 17 degrees of Cancer. We get forward motion, and it won't come out of the retrograde shadow or that Leo 6 degrees until May the 2nd. So when we think about this journey of the retrograde, October 4th to May 2nd, that Leo Cancer part of your chart, but maybe something is influencing it from that Scorpio part of your chart. Okay. Now, let's get into the week. And actually, something new that I was going to do here is take off everything but the sun and the moon. So let me just do that really quickly. I wonder if you had any stories that came up this week around the North Node moving into Pisces, the South Node moving into the sign of Virgo. I had been looking back, trying to think what might the North Node at 0 degrees of Aries bring us. And it is crazy to see these big fires in Hollywood, burning down houses, mansions. 0 degrees Aries being a world point, we can really envision and imagine how hard this is. And I'm just, regardless of anything, to be displaced, even if you are very rich, is not easy. To lose your animals and your homes and, really memories. Because, I was reading, there's a swim coach that I really respect. He's a 10-time Olympic medalist, and he lost his home and he lost his Olympic medals. And he had a chance to come home and grab some things. And this wasn't something that he grabbed. And I thought, isn't that interesting? And it feels very on point with something I'm been percolating in my soul, because I have this big swim meet that is coming up, and I've been reflecting on what is my why. Why do I want to go to this? And I think something that was driving me before I was thinking about is I want to win. I want to win and be the best, be first place. And I don't think that that's actually soul level what I'm in it for. And so we might be, questioning our ambitions. We might be questioning our soul path because the North Node just moved signs. So we can see here in this chart the sun in Capricorn to start the week, and the moon is in the sign of Cancer. And so we get this. I'm just going to animate this by hour. We get the full moon. So you can see that red line coming there to show that they are opposing. And it's going to actually, and it's interesting because it's changing and moving because of the rising sign. So it opposes directly at 23 degrees 59 minutes. Some places I find it's actually showing at 24 degrees 0 minutes. Can even put this forward by some minutes here and see. So we get this full moon moment in the sign of Cancer, which is extremely feeling and emotional. And I was reading one of my books that was talking about the sign of Cancer. I wanted to share this with you because I thought, the symbol that Cancer energy is the crab. We all know those little crabs with their big pinchers, and they kind of scuttle around. Cancer, the crab, probably originated in Babylonian times. But twin turtles was actually associated with this sign in Egypt, which I thought was interesting. Twin energy has been coming up a lot with the current astrology. The ruling planet is the moon. So this is very interesting when we get a full moon in the sign of the moon, right? It's more moody or moony, as I like to change that. it's changing. It's you know, when we talk about moodiness, Cancer people can be on top of the world and the highest of highs, and then in a depression in an instant. And if we think about it as cardinal water, it's because it's the start of the feeling. It's like that overwhelming moment when the feeling hits. And this is a negative polarity. So it's receptive, it's inner, and it's feminine. It is a water sign cardinal modality. And the body area that it's associated with is the chest, the stomach, the breasts. Okay. So our feminine, nurturing part of our body. Very interesting that on here it says all trees are associated with Cancer, particularly those rich in sap, thinking maple trees. There's an interesting movie on, I'm not sure which program, about sap and maple trees. But being Canadian, that's something that we think about. And I saw so many um, reels on Instagram about Canadian water bombers going to help out the United States, when actually the president has kind of spoken out poorly about Canada and joked about us being the 51st state and some of these things. It's very interesting. Us Canadians, we get in there and we help no matter what. Herbs and spices here. Tarragon was the one that kind of interested me. Foodstuffs, milk, fish, fruits, vegetables with a high water content, remembering that water piece, cabbage and turnip. Animals, creatures with a shell covering. Countries, Scotland's, the Netherlands, North and West Africa, New Zealand, Paraguay. So this Cancer energy is quite protective. Also, we forget sometimes, and I would say protective in a passive aggressive way. I've actually gotten so mad that I've had to speak out my anger and set some boundaries. We have a brand new vehicle and it's broken down yet again, and the dealership wasn't handling it properly. So we went in and I had to get angry, and I did it in I felt quite positive way. And my husband said, "Oh yeah, passive aggressive." But he was like enlivened by it because he's normally the one getting angry and bringing that protection. And so it's interesting to have that bubbling up in myself. This is stuff also that isn't like just a new anger. It's something that's coming up that has been some time coming. Now, if we forward to Tuesday, we can see on Tuesday the moon moves into Leo. On Wednesday, it's in the sign of Leo. And on Thursday, it moves into, in the afternoon, into Virgo. And now that the South Node is in Virgo, I want you to pay attention to Thursday, Friday, Saturday, because that could be some interesting energy for us. It could have a theme or a story of what that South Node in the sign of Virgo might mean. So on Friday, it is in Virgo. And then on Saturday, we can see it at the end degrees in Virgo, trining that energy of the Capricorn last degrees, Capricorn sun. So Saturday feels to me like this earthy, hardworking energy. It's very interesting. My son will be at a swim meet, and I hope that this means that he catches his time for swimming that he needs. It's an outlast, do hard things, go to work and be organized type of energy. So mark that in your calendar. And then on Sunday, their sun moves into Aquarius. And I wish I had time to go into the Aquarian stuff. We have just so much else going on this week. So let's bump back to Monday. That is the moon moving through the signs. Sorry, the sun and the moon moving through the signs. And I want to add back in all of these display points. Apologize again. All right. Let's go. Much more complicated when we add all of that in there. So Sunday, which is the day that I'm recording this, we see Mars trining Neptune. So Mars in Cancer sending, good vibes to that Neptune in Pisces. This feels kind of emotionally confusing or maybe emotionally inflammatory. And I want you to think about the ways that you might get inflamed when it comes to emotions. Some people struggle with joy or fun. Some people struggle with sadness. Some people struggle with anger. Where are you maybe having some stagnant stuckness? This could be the moment where the dam breaks loose or we have an emotional release, and not shaming ourselves in this. This is part of the way we get regulated. We have to maybe experience some unregulation to get regulated. Monday, the sun then trines Uranus. So I'm just going to we can see that here, Sun trining Uranus. This feels maybe a little bit disruptive, but in a stubborn, remembering that Uranus is retrograde, there might be just some push come to shove. There's a lot of push-pull energy this week. So, and that's exactly what I would say my arguments have felt like with my husband. It's like there's kind of this like tit for tat type of energy where we're not like full out fighting, but it is not feeling super conducive. Then that full moon, 2:26 p.m. I believe that's Pacific time at that 24, so 23:59 minutes or 24 degrees. We round up for the Sabian symbols. Interesting to note, if the if it is at 24:00, that is 24. We don't round up. That's the only the 0 minutes is the only time we don't round up. And the Sabian symbol is a woman and two men, or a man and two women, cast away on a small island. So some type of relationship, boundary energy. We also think of kind of that triangle energy that happens when or between three people. Okay. Yeah, I'm not going to say too much more about that other than there could be some like feelings of overwhelm with this full moon. We also get it is sextile to Uranus. And so while that might feel good, I feel like that's also this energy of stubbornness and shocking. Uh, like if we can utilize doing something differently than we've always done, it could be a great time to like change a habit or pattern, but it could also really send us into a spiral around, I even think of with this energy, there could be some jealousy, there could be some conflict, there could be some feelings of isolation, even. Now, then we move forward and we can see on and read through that Sabian symbol there to see what kind of resonates for you. Also, we have full moon in Cancer, just a little practice of moon bathing. If you can't get out into the moon, out into the environment to take in the moon naked, which at this time of year it's pretty cold. We can also, just have a bath and do some of the same things in that practice or ritual. You could go and just sit outside. You don't have to be naked, bathing in the moon's light. Would I use this energy to charge my crystals? If you're okay with emotionality, feelings, I would say yes. Now, Tuesday, we get Venus square Jupiter, another kind of check-in point here. That we're kind of being asked to speak our truth in relationship, to consider the options, to think about, this might be a moment of seeing polarity within your love, relationships, finances. And it also feels like a real check-in point of whatever that Saturn in Pisces story is for you. So thinking about where you're being disciplined, structured, having to become a mature, responsible authority in the Pisces part of your chart. Wednesday, the 15th, is when we see the sun opposite Mars. Again, this is the retrograde moment where Mars being closest to Earth, get out, see if you can see Mars in the night sky, really envision and lean into what am I hoping to get out of the rest of this cycle. Thinking about what you might be able to achieve and bring forth in the end of February, March, and April in the Cancer part of your chart. And April, May in the Leo part of your chart. Now, on Saturday, we get Venus conjunct Saturn, which I kind of talked about there. Thursday. Yeah. So, and quite honestly, I think the sun moving into Aquarius is going to have us feeling intellectually stimulated and able to take a step back. But, and also, this full moon is happening within a few degrees of Pluto, which is now in Aquarius. This is the first full moon of the year. This year is proving or showing that we've already had quite a few big political disaster events that have happened. I want you to think about on Saturday, Venus coming to conjunct Saturn. We have some love and beauty and possibility of Venus blessing that Saturn story. This could be someone coming to you and, doting on you because you are the authority, or they respect you and are wanting to kind of to learn from you. Whatever that percolation that is happening, and we can see this interesting grand trine that is happening in the earth signs. I also want you to consider where the earth signs fall in your chart and what might be flowing and feel generative on that Saturday. There is an interesting fact, actually, that the sun in human design will be entering a new gate this week. Sorry, and I'm just going to pull this up because my mind is drawing a complete and total blank, which feels kind of like my sickness here. So the sun in gate 61, inner truth, gate of mystery. If you Google that, the image that is used for this gate is a beautiful fractal spiral. And the fractal is a never ending pattern. Fractals are infinitely complex patterns that are similar across different scales, repeating a simple process over and over in an ongoing feedback loop that creates them. And we can see that as chaos. We can see fractals in the universe, in matter, and there is this feeling here about, even if we just think about repetitive patterns, mathematical principles that make up, even in astrology, the cycles, we often try to rationalize mystery. We oftentimes try to, make meaning out of everything. One of the words that I feel like I have to mention this week, this is something that came through really loudly for me. Just because if there's someone that you don't get along with, or that really rubs you the wrong way, and and as people, we can not trust our intuition and like blow past that and still be friends with them, and it feels awful, and we're finally like, okay, like, trust your intuition. Yes, great. But just because you have that reaction to the person doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with the person. It means that the energy between you two, um, there's something that is holding a true connection or the right connection up. And doesn't mean it'll always be that way also. I've been thinking about psychically how this could be true, and how we might experience stuff with friends where we think like, oh my God, this person doesn't like me, they're mad at me. And they're not even thinking about us at all. Generally, that is, in my recovery world, nothing is personal. That's the four truths also. But remembering that keeping in our hearts and wanting the best for others, even if we don't like them or get along with them or feel like things are, the energy between us is good. Had an instance like this week where my son was kind of crestfallen because he was playing hockey against a buddy, and he just said hi to his buddy, and his buddy didn't even say hi back to him. And that can be competition, that can be a part of some of those pieces. Maybe it's something else, maybe he didn't hear him, maybe, there's a million thousand different things. This has actually been this has happened to him twice in the last month or so. And I wanted to go into a moment with my son of like, well, did you do something wrong? Or, X, Y, Z. We don't have to get into any of that, although being self-reflective is really good, right? Um, we can just know in our hearts that we all have chains that bound us up. And I'm going to end this week with a beautiful poem, author unknown. And I invite you to close your eyes. Take a couple deep breaths and just tune into your physical body. Tune into your emotional climate. Tune into your spiritual self. Tune into any part of you that is struggling right now, and know that it's going to be okay. Do you see those chains lying on the floor? The ones that used to bind you? Chains you snapped in half through a simple act of forgiveness. Chains you ripped from your heart in order to feel more deeply. Chains called sorrow and despair, rage and insincerity. You peeled them off, your essence, and heaved them into the pile. Somehow you picked the lock on your own ego. You did it. It wasn't your yoga teacher or your therapist or your mother or your father. You did it by yourself in the middle of the night with no one else around, no one for miles, with your own bare hands. Look at these chains on the floor, a pile of chains. Tell me you aren't brave. Tell me you aren't powerful. I dare you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And as you go through this week, I hope that the chains, that the shackles that feel like they're keeping you from whatever freedom, that we can throw them in the middle of the floor. There's a saying in recovery rooms, um, oftentimes the worst thing that we thought that we did, we could throw into the middle of the floor, and seeing everybody else's most terrible things, that we would actually be grateful to pick ours back up. And I want you to remember that this week as you're dealing with people, that we are all humans in this human experience making mistakes. And if you lean back into love always, you will never go wrong. Have a beautiful week. Have a beautiful full moon in Cancer. Bye for now.